Nobody's happy about tax increases, myself included. But I can say that, there's a different feel around the province this time. Haven't had anybody come up to me and just outright resist.
Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Chris Varcoe with the Calgary Herald, joined by Braid. Don, we've seen the government on two tracks in the last few days here in Alberta. One is finding solutions to the budget problems. The other one is having to grapple with some political problems. Let's deal with the budget first. We saw this week that the Premier was talking about eliminating certain, options that the government was contemplating to try and resolve the budget woes. And he said there's going to be no corporate income tax increase, no royalty increases, and no PST. Has he painted himself into a corner?
Well, he obviously has, and the oddity is that they're still saying that everything's on the table because they're starting this survey, which I find a little bizarre, because his remarks, especially about corporate tax, are just categorical. He clearly is a premier who would not administer that, even if the public tells him to do it. He just doesn't believe it's a good thing to do. So he's cut himself down to other options, and they're narrower options, and obviously the burden is going to fall on the regular folks, on the taxpayer, not on corporations and so forth, and we'll have to see how he manages that. What do you think he's going to do?
Well, I think that he's not going to go after necessarily the big fish in the terms of, I'm not convinced yet that we're going to see a huge income tax increase. But I do think that there's lots of little levers he can pull, whether it's a healthcare premium, which would raise about $1 billion, which the Alberta Medical Association has said we should consider, or whether it's liquor taxes or fuel taxes. I think there's other smaller things he can do, but I guess the question is, does he try and harpoon the big whale?
Well, I think his target for revenue gain is about $2 billion, a running target. With healthcare premiums and tobacco tax, tobacco and alcohol, it's unbelievable how much money they bring in. I mean, alcohol is almost $1 billion by itself, for heaven's sake. So, with raises to those kind of taxes, they can get to that $2 billion number, perhaps with just a small increase in the income tax.
The Premier has been out in New York and Washington trying to solve some bigger political problems for the government in terms of getting its energy down there. But back at home, we've seen MLAs take a pay cut and maybe start setting the table for a showdown with the civil service and with the public sector unions. Do you think he's going to be seeking wage cuts from them?
I think it's still up in the air as to whether he'll actually go after Klein-era style rollbacks of 5% to match the one. I think they would like to, but if he's going to throw the province into an election, that would be a heck of an issue to fight with demonstrations all over the place, which is what you'd have during an election. I do believe that $2.6 billion he keeps talking about, the contractual raises over the next 2 years, right. The unions, I don't think they're going to get them. They'll go that far. Whether they go farther is still open to question.
But that's one political issue. I think there's another political issue that's looming, and that is healthcare. Healthcare is always a big issue in this province. We saw Alberta Health Services this week come out and say that they're looking at an austerity program, but apparently that hasn't extended in the past to severance payouts. We saw $28 million paid out since 2011 on severances to AHS. It strikes me that this is another sore spot for the Tories.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. $28 million. And Prentice says we've got to stop the revolving door. Now, I don't think they have to stop the revolving door, because if they do, then more people won't go out. The problem is that when they go out, they always go out with a suitcase full of money. These incredible severance contracts that were written in. And they've been reorganizing AHS for more than a year now. They've boiled it down to a pinhead, as it were, as far as the management goes. And it still happens.
So the other issue politically that I think the government is probably didn't see coming was the lawsuit that was filed by the former chief medical officer, basically alleging political interference in her office. That strikes me that this has got some danger.
That is a bizarre thing. Annie Sauvageau always struck me as a bit of fish out of water. They hired her out of Quebec, very competent, a very, very tough-minded person. There's no doubt about it. But some of the claims she's making, such as, AHS, that the chief medical officer was billed for the transportation of a body, and so was the family. I mean, if some of these things, the very, very strange things that she's claiming turn out to be true, and they haven't been proven yet, of course, the government's going to have trouble over this.
All right, let's watch for the next week and see more budget talk and more political problems and how they're dealt with.
We sure will. It's going to be interesting.